In 1956, novelist and screenwriter Raymond Chandler confirmed what Ian Fleming already knew, that the quality of Fleming's Bond thrillers had declined steadily since the promising Casino Royale, and that his latest effort, Diamonds Are Forever, had hit a new low water mark. Chandler suggested that anyone who writes as dashingly as you do ought, I think, to try for a little higher grade. If Fleming had ignored his hero's advice, it seems doubtful whether we would still be chattering on about books which, after half a century, continue to be sold in matching sets, or would still be watching internet videos that find creative ways of ranking the films derived from his works. With 4 Bond novels, including the disappointing Diamonds, now behind him, Fleming's most dazzling gems lay ahead. The author did toy with the idea of finishing off his hero in his very next book, but while giving Bond a glorious send-off in what is surely Fleming's magnum opus, he invested more time revising and polishing From Russia with Love than any of his previous novels. Much of that effort seems to have gone into weaving a charming and ingenious subtext that continues to make the book a rewarding read. This practice would become the writer's calling card for the remainder of his career. Back when Fleming began plunking away at his typewriter on his very first Bond novel, the Walt Disney Studio was already in pre-production for what would become their animation masterpiece, Sleeping Beauty. Fleming beat Disney to the punch by almost 2 years, producing a Cold War thriller that is also a sly version of the very same fairy tale, set in a bleak post-war world of crumbled empires and faded opulence. The first few pages of From Russia with Love introduce the Smersh assassin Red Grant, basking in the sun beside a collection of valuables. They include a money clip, a lighter, a cigarette case, a wristwatch, and a book. All of these glimmer with the dull sheen of real gold, except the book. It might seem out of place were it not the very early comic thriller by P.G. Wodehouse, The Little Nugget. A suntanned girl rubs oil into Grant's brawny neck, but recoils at the sight of stiff golden hairs trailing down the killer's spine all the way to his tailbone, where they terminate in a vestigial tail. Despite being made of hair, it strikes the girl as somehow reptilian. For readers not yet aware that Grant is supposed to be a dragon guarding his golden hoard, Fleming throws in a curious dragonfly, which investigates its larger napping cousin before being startled by a sudden movement and darting away. Ian Fleming sometimes dropped references to St. George and the Dragon in his Bond novels, but he's up to something more sinister here. Consider the naked and powerfully muscled Grant, first observed from the rear, attended by a frightened, sunburned masseuse, a crown of tight golden curls on his head, and a reptilian tail trailing from his spine. Fleming might as well have included a photographic plate of William Blake's apocalyptic Great Red Dragon and Woman Clothed with the Sun. The name of the young lady playing the role of sleeping fairy tale princess, Tatiana Romanova, suggests a shirt-tail relationship to the late Romanov dynasty. Bond decides she looks like a Russian princess and calls her one of the most beautiful women in the world, before making love to her in a stateroom of the Crystal Palace, where there are eyes on the other side of the mirror. Wrong fairy tale, perhaps, but it underlines the point that we are in a spy thriller that is also a full-length color cartoon. There may be no magic spells in Fleming's gritty world, but a few grains of chloral hydrate at dinner work just as well. There is nonetheless a kind of magic at play behind the scenes and on both sides. Kronstein, the architect of Smersh's evil plan, is introduced as a chess master known as the Wizard of Ice. A clever briefcase provided by the geniuses at Q Branch causes a sword to appear in Bond's hand at the very instant when he must either slay the dragon or die. In reality, it's a flat throwing knife that pops out of Bond's case, but one we are told is from Wilkinson's, the sword makers. With one swift, lethal move, Bond slashes Grant's femoral artery and then must find some way to put down the dying beast before those bared, violet teeth can reach him. Grabbing Grant's copy of War and Peace, a diabolical Russian gadget with a silent handgun built into the spine, Bond pumps bullet after bullet into the massive body until it lies motionless. Moments earlier, Grant had aimed the same book point-blank at his prisoner's heart, but not before Bond stealthily used his cigarette case to reinforce a paperback copy of Eric Ambler's The Mask of Demetrius tucked inside his breast pocket. Including the book was Fleming's thank you note to Ambler for supplying some local Istanbul color. Anticipating that this might be his farewell performance, there were other obligations to acknowledge. The paired words "third man" occur repeatedly in the story, once an actual reference to the classic film written by Graham Greene. Bond travels as Somerset, a tip of the hat to Somerset Maugham, in a long and varied career, a master of the spy thriller. In the illustrated French version of Sleeping Beauty, it's an old crone who casts a spell on the young princess, decreeing that she will prick her finger on a spindle and fall into a death-like sleep. Thus Fleming brings Rosa Klebb to Paris, disguised as a rich crone, armed with poison needles, ready to finish the job herself. Fleming's hero may have managed to kill Klebb's pet dragon and wake the princess, but he's the one who will feel the stab of a venomous point and fall asleep, apparently forever. It must have been great fun embroidering the margins of his Cold War spy novel with an updated fairy tale, because Fleming not only revived Bond from his slumber the following year, but arranged a gauntlet of time-tested labors for him to perform.